And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to discuss preventative coding. Right. And preventative coding is a good thing because one of the biggest things is that we've been doing so far with debugging is using trace statements. However, tracing can be very laborious and time consuming, especially since if you have to start tracking down, okay, where is this going? What is it doing? It can cause a lot of work, and then you have to go and clean them out of there after you fix your error. So the best way to prevent errors, of course, is to not make mistakes in the first place. I know this seems kind of silly, but that is true. The best way to prevent the errors is not to make a mistake. Now, a way to do this is to use incremental development to write and test our code. So what this means is that rather than trying to write a program all at once and then test it, and then have to go through and try to figure out where the problem is, we're going to code a very small chunk of code, see if it works, and then we'll go and code some more. Now, you may actually have been using this approach on your own when trying to solve some of the labs. Lastly, another technique to talk about is to have other programmers look over your code with you. They can do what is known as code review to immediately spot an error in your code. So, for example, you could be looking right at a misplaced semicolon, and they'll look, oh no, there's your problem. All right. This is because sometimes staring at the same line of the code for a long time causes you, the programmer, become sort of blind to the error in your code. Right? You're like, I'm looking at my code, I don't see any problems with my code, but the program is not doing what I want it to do. Like, it should just work. And then someone else will come over and like, oh, well, you have a semicolon at the end of your for statement, so it's not going to work. So let's take a quick overview of incremental coding and how that would work. So here's our program. Write a program that will start with 1 and add all the integers after it up until and including a certain number. Then it should be determined by user input. The number inputted should not be less than 5. Okay, so let's look at this problem and we can quickly determine a few things. First, we need to define variables. We need to get user input. We need to determine number size. And then we could probably use a loop to add those numbers. Let's write our code incrementally to approach each of these 3 main points, because let's face it, we can probably define variables and get user input almost all in one. So defining variables, we know we're probably going to need 3. We're going to need one that's going to get the user's number, we're going to need one that keeps count of the loop, and one that's going to keep the sum. So we can go ahead and declare those. Let's just use like int number, loop count, and sum equals 0. Alright, we also can get user input, which we've done plenty of times before. So we'll just use a scanner object, scanner kb equals new scanner system.in, number equals kb.nextInt. At this point, the reason why I said the 3 steps is because up to this point, it's something that was pretty self-explanatory. So now we can go ahead and test our code with a simple print line statement to determine if the program is capturing the value we want. Or we want that to go into number because we want to get it from the user. So if number gets us a value of what the person enters, so let's say they typed in 5, and do a system.out.println and you get 5, you know that you have a correct line of code. But if you got something, let's say they entered 5, and you do your system.out.println of number and you got 4, you may want to look at your code and see what's going on. Alright. If it is, we can move on to the final pieces of code here. So those 2 pieces, of course, we're determining number size, which a best approach to look at this is to determine an if-else statement. Since we do not want the program to proceed if they have incorrect input, we're just going to add an if statement that's going to close the program. All right, you could do this with if-else, but really you could just do an if, because we're going to use system.exit and close out the program. So if number is less than 5, that number is too small, system.exit 0 closes the program down. Constructing the loop. So here's our loop. And we could use a while loop on this, although a for loop would work just as well. And we're going to use a for loop for example here. For count loop equals 1, count loop is less than or equal to the number, count loop plus plus, sum equals sum plus count loop. And here's our self-test questions. Write 4 general incremental steps for the problem below. So remember here we had 4 bullet points, even though I said 3, it's 4 bullet points. You're going to have something kind of similar here. Write a program that will increment 10 and subtract all the integers below it up until and including a certain number. The ending number should be determined by user input, and should not be larger than 10, nor should it be smaller than 4. And that concludes our notes, folks.